An old man wandering across America in a beat-up car, knocking on restaurant doors to sell his fried chicken recipe at an age when most people are settling into retirement on government welfare. An actor struggling with obscure roles for most of his youth, only to have his hair turn stark white before delivering the most authoritative voice in cinema history. A comic book creator tossing rejected drafts into the trash for years, until the age of 39 when he finally birthed an entire superhero universe. Their names are Colonel Sanders, Morgan Freeman, and Stan Lee. If the world had graded them in their 20s or 30s, they would have flunked miserably. A bunch of laggards, moving so slowly, with seemingly zero chance of ever catching up in the race for fame. Now, look at yourself, sitting there, in the quiet, scrolling through an endless feed. Right in front of you is a photo of your old high school classmate just promoted to regional manager. Next, your ex-girlfriend, smiling with the keys to her new luxury apartment. Then, another list of young, successful people, bright names, winning big at such a young age. But what about you? You're still sitting there, trapped in a mess of your own thoughts, not knowing where you're going tomorrow, what you're doing, or what you're even good at. You feel left behind, like a bystander, watching the world move at a dizzying pace. People love to use beautiful words like late bloomer to describe you. It sounds comforting, even poetic, but in reality, to the rest of the world, it's just a polite label for a laggard. A person gasping for air, trying to catch up to a cookie-cutter life track that was laid out long ago. But through the lens of neuroscience and evolutionary biology, things are neither miserable nor romantic. Your delay is not a glitch of nature. It is a deliberate survival strategy. Your brain refuses to consume rushed cognitive updates, only to silently build the most solid foundation an individual can achieve. Today's society worships a toxic religion, rush. It forces us into a brutal industrial assembly line. Everyone is expected to follow a perfectly straight life graph. Pick a major at 18. Graduate at 22. Get promoted at 25. Buy a house and settle down at 30. Anyone who deviates from this map is labeled a defective product, a broken piece that needs to be fixed immediately. But look at those who explode too early. Developmental psychologist James Marcia spent half his life decoding how humans construct their identity. He discovered a state called identity foreclosure. This is the reality for the vast majority of early overachievers. They step into the world and immediately pick up the very first mask thrown at them by family, school, or society. They don't doubt. They don't ask questions. Parents say medicine is prestigious. They grind day and night to become doctors. Society says tech is a gold mine. They rush into programming. They fit perfectly into the coat of expectations, running their lives like a pre-programmed machine. They climb the ladders of fame at a breakneck speed. But here's the tragedy. That ladder wasn't built by them. They're just borrowing it from someone else to climb. They define who they are based on the shallow applause of the crowd. And when that mask is stripped away, all that's left inside is a colorless void. Take a very common scenario. A 22-year-old graduating with top honors and immediately landing a job at a major financial firm. He grinds 80 hours a week, sacrificing every hobby, every personal relationship, just to secure a deputy manager seat by 26. He prides himself on being ahead of his time, looking down on friends who are still struggling to jump jobs. But by 32, after a corporate restructuring, his position begins to shake. Or maybe he just wakes up one morning and realizes he has zero motivation left to get out of bed. That old sense of achievement vanished, replaced by a brutal reality check. He realizes he spent his entire youth climbing a mountain he never even wanted to summit. That is the brutal price of locking in your life too early. But your brain is different. Your cognitive engine has a built-in allergy to anything prepackaged. It refuses to borrow a fake identity just to buy temporary comfort. And that is why you are stuck in a state that James Marcia called identity moratorium. This phase is a relentless cycle of misery and inner conflict. Your brain constantly throws you into existential crises. You try a job, work for a few months, find it soul-crushing and mechanical, and you quit. You embrace an ideal, only to tear it down with your own hands after realizing the hypocrisy inside. You cannot lock in who you are, because the analytical engine in your head is digging through every corner of life, searching for a core truth, refusing to settle for a shallow title on a business card. The crowd looks at your constant job hopping, your endless trial and error, and sighs in disappointment. They label you as lazy or lacking perseverance. But what they don't understand is that pitching a cardboard tent only takes an afternoon. It's fast, it's convenient, but one light breeze and it's gone. But to build a stone cathedral that stands unshakable against the storms, it takes decades just to dig the foundation deep into the bitter ground, enduring the dust and the outside emptiness for a very long time. Science journalist David Epstein, in his study of world-class performers, highlighted a crucial concept: the sampling period. For complex minds, this experimentation phase lasts crazily long. You hop from job to job, you read books completely unrelated to your major, you learn skills that seem useless right now. You dabble in graphic design, write a little, then pivot to studying paleontology or existential philosophy. Outsiders look at you and call you flaky or lacking focus. But in reality, you are building what Epstein calls interdisciplinary range. You are learning to connect the dots that an early specialist will never even see. Society loves those who crawl into a narrow pipe at 18 and just shoot straight through. It's easy to manage, easy to appraise, but your biological engine craves a massive bandwidth. It needs time to experiment, to fail, to collide with reality before making its final play. From a neuroscience perspective, the prefrontal cortex of a late bloomer possesses a priceless biological trait: prolonged neuroplasticity. This is the brain region responsible for high-level executive functions, impulse control, and long-term planning. While the minds of the crowd calcify early on, freezing their neural pathways to specialize in a single career, your cortex remains fluid. It keeps expanding, constantly spinning new neural webs, absorbing chaotic fragments of data from the world around you. Neurological studies have shown that highly developed brains often have a much slower maturation rate in the prefrontal cortex compared to the average. This delay isn't a developmental deficit. It is a calculated delay to maintain maximum learning and adaptation capabilities. Your brain would rather look like a clueless amateur today, just to silently hoard a massive bank of data for a prolonged explosion tomorrow. You are not lost. You are just stockpiling ammunition for the biggest battle of your life. But I have to be completely honest with you. Carrying a brain with such a long incubation period is not a comfortable privilege. Most of the time, it feels like a grueling life sentence that you have to endure every single day. But before we dissect this brutal sentence any further, if you feel like your stubborn biological engine has finally been understood, the YouTube algorithm always loves clear signals. A like or subscribe won't make you rich overnight, but it tells the system that there are still minds out there craving raw truth over the shallow advice floating around the internet. The button is right below. Let's keep moving. The price you pay for your brain's prolonged neuroplasticity is living with profound uncertainty for decades. It's those nights you lie there staring at the ceiling, listening to the ticking clock, feeling like a misfit piece cast aside on the margins of society. You're sick and tired of the prying questions from relatives during every holiday. You ask yourself, did I make a wrong turn somewhere in my past? Psychiatrist Carl Jung once dissected this profound psychological abyss. He never believed in the early success that society glorifies. Jung pointed out that human life is divided into two distinct halves. The first half of life is a playground of adaptation. This is when people mold themselves, discarding their true ego to put on the persona required by society. They learn to make money, fight for positions, and seek validation to please others. Most of the crowd out there spend all their vital energy just to win this first half. They bend their souls to fit into the mold that the system demands. But the second half of life is the real bloody battlefield. Carl Jung called it the process of individuation, the journey of stripping away the mask to become a whole being. This second half doesn't ask how much money you made or how many social connections you own. It corners you and asks a cold question: who are you really? When the shallow applause of the crowd fades away. And this is the tragedy of early achievers. Those who rush to lock in their life in their 20s, building their entire self-esteem on external evaluation. When they enter the second half, they often face a catastrophic collapse. People often dress it up with a poetic name, the midlife crisis. They wake up at 40, looking at the executive chair, looking at their savings, and suddenly realize their entire life was just a shallow play scripted by someone else. Their cognitive system completely implodes. You were never able to play the game of the first half. Your biology refused to cram itself into a fake mold. All your agonizing, your feeling stuck, your slowness throughout youth was actually because you were forced to take the test of the second half of life right from the very beginning. Your brain would rather choose to be stuck, rather stand still and take the blows than play a role that isn't you. You have been wrestling with individuation in the dark, while others were busy faking it in the spotlight. When a late bloomer finally steps out of the shadows, when the sampling period ends, and the prefrontal cortex finishes connecting millions of chaotic data points, what happens next? Your foundation stones finally lock together into an unshakable fortress. In economics and talent development theory, there is a concept called match quality. It's the perfect alignment between your innate traits, your abilities, and the work you do. When you find this match later in life, your success carries a completely different physical weight. It is not built on fragile arrogance or youthful illusions. It doesn't feed on social media engagement or the validation of others. It is a block of cold steel, forged through decades of agony and self-doubt. You don't need to scream to prove your existence. Your sheer calmness, your sharp, precise decisions automatically radiate an authority that early, lucky pretenders can never mimic. You didn't fail during those youthful years. You were just incubating. A diesel engine always takes an agonizingly long time just to warm up. But once it hits its stride, it can pull an entire train over steep mountain passes, leaving flashy sports cars staring in the dust. True brilliance never comes with an expiration date stamped on the package. Only those with short-sighted visions believe that life is a 100-meter dash. Life is a long-term game of evolution. In nature, the fastest-growing creatures are usually insects with a lifespan of a few short weeks. But it is the ancient trees, taking decades to anchor their roots deep into the barren earth, that stand unyielding through every violent storm. If you still feel like a misplaced guest at the party of this rushed society, then please, be silent and stop apologizing to the world. You do not owe anyone an early success. Just because you don't align with the shallow timeline of the crowd doesn't mean you are broken. It means you are being programmed for a lifespan that is far grander, deeper, and more sustainable. The inner strength you are silently and painfully cultivating today is exactly what will keep you from collapsing tomorrow. Let the crowd outside pride themselves on their short-term titles. Let them race against the ticking clock of vanity. You just need to sit there, take a sip of warm water, calmly observe, and continue building the empire within your own mind. Because when your time finally comes, you won't need to chase anyone anymore. They will be the ones looking up at you. In the comments below today, I want you to answer just one question. Have you ever had to endure those foolish, pitiful looks from family or friends? Just because you refuse to follow what they call a standard timeline? How did you swallow that suffocating feeling? Write it down. No one here is rushing you to the finish line. We all know how expensive the silence of preparation truly is. Protect your energy and protect your own schedule. If this psychological lens is one of the few things that doesn't make you feel judged or exhausted, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We will meet again to expose other ridiculous traps of society in our upcoming conversations. See you then in your own quiet space.